Brothers and sisters, on this occasion, we will faithfully recount the testimony of Pastor Raul Santana, who attests to the existence of hellfire and saw the Argentine revolutionary, Che Guevara, in that place. Our testimony is faithful and true according to Pastor Santana's experience. We will not add or omit anything according to our knowledge. Below is the testimony of Pastor Raul Santana. Brethren, after having remained for 72 hours in prayer and fasting with Sister Maria Elena Beltran under an apple tree, an angel appeared to us and told us, "Follow me." We both looked at each other in perplexity, and the angel said, "No, you are not dreaming either. Don't be afraid. Follow me." And we followed him for a short time. Then he stopped, waiting for us to catch up with him, and he got between us. Sister Maria Elena was on the right. I, Raul Santana, was on the left. For a moment, we entered the dark tunnel that took the three of us to hellfire. Everything in that place is sinister. It's literally like a horrible nightmare from which you can't wake up. And the angel said, "All this is necessary so that you can bear witness according to what you see, so that many don't come to this place and be saved by witness." We walked along a road of red burning bricks, but we didn't burn the soles of our feet. Then, from the road, we entered a bridge that crossed a very large lake of fire, and the angel told us, "Don't be afraid of what you hear and see. It's necessary." Once we entered the bridge, we looked around the place in terror. A red sky, some of different colors, and even colors we hadn't seen before. But red and pink predominated here, just as green and blue predominate in our land. Thousands of souls shouted curses against God and against Jesus Christ, against the angels of heaven, against the demons of hell, and against Satan. Everything was curses and blasphemy, and my legs trembled. The angel said, "Be strong, for God is strong." It is a terrible place, and thousands of men and women, white and black, of all languages and ethnic groups, shout and shout thousands of blasphemies. But we were endowed with the gift of language, and we understood everyone in our own native language, their curses and their cries, some cries for forgiveness. It didn't matter if they were English or German, Latin or Saxon. We understood them in our own native language, just as all those of different cultures and languages on the day of Pentecost understood the Galileans after the manifestation of the Spirit. And there, inside the sea of fire, everyone screamed without hope, while worms covered them and devoured them. They came out through their eye sockets, and others entered again through their mouths. The unfortunate men and women had no rest, respite, or peace. They waited in the pink sky. Great torture. Torturing vultures flew overhead and unexpectedly launched themselves at the condemned. Some, to avoid the vultures, dived into the fiery lava. We never saw them again. A great serpent entered the lake, and everyone, upon seeing it, tried to escape. But they collided with each other and pushed each other, filled with hatred and curses against their fellow companions. The serpent swam slowly over the lake of fire, and when it reached a group of women and men, it decapitated a few. From the serpent's mouth, their head, still alive and conscious, just as when a captain takes a snake, it remains alive in hell. The same thing happens to souls. From the snake's mouth, they see their bodies filled with worms collapse and disappear into the lake. The giant snake with several heads in its mouth came out of the lake and disappears from our sight. We were terrified, she and I, and the angel said, "Be strong." And so we crossed the bridge. It ended on the side of the lake. We saw several women being tormented on the ground, and several black demons held them, and others opened their legs and inserted fiery swords and shears into their genitals. Demons laughed. They also inserted their hands and pulled out a green mass full of worms. The women screamed in pain. Then these hungry demons, known as the filibusters, and 2 of the 6 dogs from hell arrived, and they fought with the demons for eating the green mass that they took from the women. And the angel said, "These ladies aborted their children on earth, and that's why the demons torture them this way again and again." Then we saw a McDonald's restaurant in the distance, and we tore our eyes out with our hands, because we couldn't conceive of seeing McDonald's in hell. The angel said, "That restaurant has been plagued around the world by Satan to tempt eaters with junk food and draw them away from God. Through a lagoon from a distance, in the McDonald's restaurant, a large advertisement for cold Coca-Cola and another for French fries. The angel said, "Look to the right." When we looked, we saw 3 large cells, and inside these, men and women, mostly obese, who desperately looked toward the restaurant still engulfed in flames. McDonald's continued to tempt them. Then we entered the place of Torment. These souls suffer a lot of mockery and humiliation by demons who usually penetrate their rectum with fiery swords and then mock them, while a demon with a large sword cuts them through the torso and orders them to go for their legs, while the condemned man crawls through the fire, sinking into small lakes of burning lava. In the burning place, the furious dogs of hell prowl over the crawling homos, and they are scared off by the demons who confront the dogs in groups. However, occasionally the dogs manage to break through the surveillance and urinate on the nearest homo, and their urine is acidic, raising blisters on the unfortunate souls. The tearing dogs tear off a piece of their arm, and the dogs flee when they realize that the demons have seen them. They carry parts of a condemned man's arm in their sharp fangs and teeth. This does not prevent the demons from telling these souls to keep searching for their legs, and when in agony, they trample across the hot ground and manage to reach where they think they will find their legs. Behind a great flame of fire, 2 demons hide. When the soul approaches, these demons carry a large jar of burning lava. They approach with slow steps in front of the crawling soul and pour all the burning contents over it. They become charred and then reintegrate to continue suffering more punishments in a cycle of repetition that is barely moving, to see how they are reduced from pain to agony under a bench, and slow, cruel, and painful gnashing of teeth. And we saw how 3 condemned men were taken from the group and dragged by several demons to a clearing, and we were once again witnesses to an internationally known figure, the Argentine revolutionary known as Che Guevara. Then Sister Beltran asks the angel, "Isn't that the Cuban revolutionary Che Guevara, whose photo appears on t-shirts worldwide?" And the angel replied, "That's right, that's the guy. He's not Cuban, he's Argentinian. But what is he doing among homos if he sent them to concentration camps in Cuba?" The sister asks the angel, and he replies, "Indeed, that soul that is discussed in this section, he was a closet homo, and his hatred toward homos was motivated because he had 3 homos as lovers in his life, and all 3 betrayed him by fornicating with other men as if it were with a woman. He never forgave the betrayal and hated them all equally. Today, he is tormented among his own people in this place." The 3 of them were standing with their feet in the tar pit, and 3 demons were developing a device. The sister and I watched without understanding what they were doing. Several demons were surrounding those who were standing next to them, so that the demons guarding them wouldn't escape. Later, they moved aside, and the demons aimed this at the wretches, and through the large hose came a jet of burning lava. Under screams of torment and agony, they turned into lava as it fell upon them. The 3 homo souls, Che Guevara and the 2 at his side, turned into broth, but even in that state, they were conscious. Within a while, they would reintegrate into a cycle of repetition. In that place, everything is repeated over and over again. And the angel looks at us and says, "All this that is happening here saddens the Lord's heart." Then we continued moving forward and approached the McDonald's restaurant. But on the way to McDonald's, we saw many horrors that cannot easily be erased from our minds, like that of a white man who had been consigned to hell for murdering black people, an American who had served in the Klan. There, lying on the ground, held by his hands and feet with hooks burning on the floor and begging for mercy, a demon struck him. He called a dog with a horrible whistle, and the dog appeared with its sharp teeth, its mouth dripping blood and baring its fierce fangs. The dog reached the unfortunate racist. Each bite that this soul received from the dog's tongue was followed by terrifying screams. Then the dog urinates on him, and its urine is like acid that corrodes everything it comes into contact with. The unfortunate man was trying in vain to escape this situation. The dog then confronts him with its sharp teeth between its legs and tears out his genitals. And then, as he shrank and begged to die, a demon answered him, "In this place, the genitals will be of no use to you. and you don't need them." And the other demons, upon hearing this, threw themselves on the floor, dying of laughter and mockery, while the wretched man writhed in pain. Hell is an immense universe of torment and eternal torture. No one who has ever visited that place will ever be able to spend a second like that, amidst screams of curses against God, against Jesus, and against Him, entwined in songs of agony. The inmates uttered pain-filled cries. We found our way through lakes of fire. We approached the McDonald's restaurant. There were parking lots around it, but there were no cars. The building was surrounded by beautiful gardens with flowers of all colors, and the paved area had just rained, and everything looked shiny and damp. The air was fresh. For a moment, we thought we were back on the earthly plane. The angel told us to go in. As we entered, he told us not to ask anything, just look, so that through his eyes we could bear witness to the truth. We entered inside. We saw beautiful blonde, brunette, and black girls behind the counter wearing their uniforms, the hallmark of this satanic restaurant. The air conditioning was a stark contrast. They were making a huge fuss about us. We saw the girls behind the cash registers very busy, and the restaurant was empty. An obese woman seemed to be the manager as she directed the other girls and was the one giving orders. Looking through the windows, we saw it was starting to rain, and beneath the rain, we saw obese men and women and even thin people running desperately to reach the restaurant. Some fell, and others ran over them. There were around 300 or more of them. McDonald's was their target, the dining rooms and the feasts. Then the obese black woman told the women behind the counter that some of them should come out and clean the tables because the customers were about to arrive. And we were approaching McDonald's. This is what the angel told us. This restaurant was created by Lucifer's angels to separate souls from God's grace through gluttony. Lucifer has plagued the entire world with these junk food restaurants, causing an addiction to gluttony and at the same time, a separation between man and God. The eaters are tortured, and even from their punishment cells engulfed in flames, they stare with temptation at the restaurant that has been intentionally placed not far from their punishment cells. Desperate, like starving pigs, they push against each other to look out through the bars of fire at McDonald's. The angel told them, seeing this unbridled man running for food with a knife. I remember Proverbs 23:2. Proverbs 23:2 states, "And put a knife to your throat if you are given to gluttony." Here I tell you, forget about McDonald's if you want to enter the kingdom of heaven, because when you go to breakfast at that restaurant, even if you're not a big eater, you're sponsoring Satan. And these souls arrived soaked under the torrential rain, so they entered desperately through the 4 glass doors inside and stood in lines in front of the 12 cash registers. They stood in front of 12 nice, kind, and beautiful white, dark-skinned and black girls, even though they wouldn't have to pay. She had invited them, and the dining room was overflowing with happiness, and they looked like starving pigs. Then the obese woman tells everyone very kindly not to despair, that they can eat and drink everything in the restaurant until they explode. And in the dining room, the people looked happy with big smiles on their lips and thanked the good-natured woman. Some still had the burns they had received in their punishment cell, but the command was the most important thing for them. They all ordered large quantities of chicken, mango, and all kinds of hamburgers, and even strawberry milkshakes. They sat at the tables, hungry, and began to eat and drink desperately. They hugged each other. The cold Coca-Cola was the most they drank, and you could see a lot of joy and happiness. They were dining and drinking heavily. Then music by Celia Cruz, the Afro-Cuban, and also Michael Jackson, the African-American, was heard. They danced, they were happy, they ate until they exploded, and they thanked Satan for that privilege, and they celebrated like that for a long time. Then we heard loud thunder and lightning that broke our eardrums, and we saw how everything outside slowly turned pink, and the rainwater inside the building turned a shade of sky blue and light pink. We also saw a change in the atmosphere. It was slow, and many of the diners couldn't perceive it. They were there only to eat and drink. That was all that mattered to everyone. Praise and thanks to Satan were the most common things heard among the uninterrupted peaceful murmur of those present. We watched in astonishment, standing in a corner. The three of us looked at them in astonishment. The sister looked at me, and I looked at her, and the angel told us, "In hell, there are many things that will never reach the heart of man." The beautiful McDonald's girls slowly transformed, and the kind, overweight woman also changed. Then the diners and the feasters, who had no sight but food and the Coca-Cola, perceived that something was changing. At the tables where they sat, the drinks were heating up very quickly, and the food on their tables was taking the form of burning coal and hot stones. Then, frightened, they no longer wanted to eat anything. The fat woman had transformed in the same place, Satan and the beautiful girls, into disgusting demons armed with fiery swords and long strident ones, a few with long burning spears. The eaters don't quite understand what's happening and ask each other questions, but no one knows how to answer the other. He presented himself in front of everyone and says, "I'm Satan. The party is just beginning. You came to eat, and you'll have to eat and drink. I'm treating you." At the same time, he asked all the frightened gluttons, "All glory and praise to those who eat." And the demons respond in unison to the Prince of Darkness. They praise their only true God, and Satan lets out a grotesque laugh, and the demons do too. But the blackheads are astonished and trembling. Inside the restaurant, everything changed. The elegant walls began to burn with fire. Then more demons appeared, holding each of the rubber tapers tightly on the hot ground, 2 demons for each eater. And while one demon held the victim, the other opened his mouth with his 2 strong claws. As they opened them, a third appeared with the containers that had previously held cold Coca-Cola, but had now turned into lava, and they shoved them into his mouth until his stomach exploded. The glutton had to die. They reminded him that he was already dead, and the hunger and pain the condemned man was suffering could be perceived by his screams, his teeth grinding, and his despair. His stomach was flitting, and the lava was pouring out and mixing with his writhing body. They begged for mercy. The sister and I were shedding tears. Then very thin demons appeared and whipped them while shouting, "Here they asked to come eat, and here they will eat until they burst." The place was terrible and indescribable according to human reasoning. Then demons armed with large spears entered, and were given space to drive the sharp spears into the genitals of the eaters who had also been homo. The same 8 demons pointed at them, and were simultaneously driving their fire-tipped spears into the genitals of these men and women. Then, several dogs appeared and entered the place through the door on the left and headed towards the condemned writhing in pain on the hot floor, their genitals torn apart with their legs spread. The dogs latched on and tore out what was left of them. Then the condemned suffered and screamed. The demons laughed while the dogs searched between the legs of women, not finding much to eat. Then they urinated on them. Acid. The place was horrifying. We wanted to leave. The more we saw the dogs looking at the fat women when he ordered them to patrol for the henna and leave. Then some giant toads entered the place and covered those who were writhing on the ground in pain and sucked them with their tongues. They screamed, and their cries were devastating. A group of obese people had not yet been punished, and they had orders from Satan to watch and remain still. Then the afflicted and pained condemned prisoners were ordered to get up and return to their cells, but they couldn't do it. They couldn't get up in the painful conditions they were in. Then the angry toad asked the coalman to come for them, and the coalman wondered. The rain had stopped being water. It was now a dense red fog of lava. It was falling, and 2 very large demons appeared. They rode and dug a 4-wheeled cart. They didn't enter the structure, and it was made of very hot tin. The cart was clearly burning hot. Then these demons pulled out a bullet, each one, very large, and entered what at first appeared to be a McDonald's. With the bullets, they picked up souls from the ground, taking them to the dining rooms and throwing them at the cart. The roar was heard when they fell, along with the screams. These multiplied even more when they were thrown onto the platform of the cart under the fog that fell over them. The pleas for forgiveness from non-existence mingled with the curses and pain. Afterward, the demons called the coalman, took the disfigured and painfully hungry to their punishment cells under the dense lava fog. We saw them appear through the reddish crystals, looked at a being walking slowly, supported by 2 crutches, accompanied by the 6 stark dogs of hell. The angel lowered his head and told us that the eaters who remained inside and were not tortured along with the first not only committed the sin of gluttony, but were also idolaters. The punishment for them was greater than that of the previous ones. That's enough, and we left the place and crossed paths with a being with 2 crutches, accompanied by the dogs at the wide door. No one should ever trust Satan, neither on earth nor in hell nor in heaven. The eaters were there because they themselves had experienced it. Satan hadn't forced them to. From their cells, they allowed themselves to be tempted by an illusion projected by the American McDonald's restaurant itself, and they begged the demons who tortured and guarded them to let them go to the restaurant, even if it was just once. 1,000 times I, Raul Santana, dedicated to the gospel full-time, and Sister Maria Elena Beltran went together with the angel to hellfire and staked faith on a testimony as real as if we look on a night of a full moon, we will see the moon in the heights, and if it is a sunny day, we will see the sun in the heights, that this testimony is real, and our experience was not the product of an interpretation, a strange dream, or a confusing spiritual event. If we were taken in the body, we don't know. If we were taken out of the body, neither do you. But we do know that what Sister Elena saw and what I saw, she and we both had the experience at the same time and place, on the same plane, and within our own time and place. We can assure you that we also saw several tortured souls in the Homos area, including those in the photo that appears on t-shirts worldwide and that everyone knew as Che Guevara. Our testimony is faithful and true, and we bear witness to what we saw in hell about the torture of those who eat. Amen. Thanks for watching. Grace be with you all who have Jesus Christ as Master. Amen.